Okay. So we have no PowerPoints, we have no sheet of papers, it's all in here because we live from chaos. So we decided to introduce ourselves, right? Okay. Absolutely. You are Gabriela Sperl. She's a very successful producer. She started as a historian, then she started writing scripts, and then she decided, I don't like the way people make movies out of my scripts, I produce myself. So she turned into a producer of very successful movies, and she even achieved with her last movie, Operation Zucker, Operation Sugar, to even get us a foot into the German government to change the law about child trafficking. So far, so good.
So Sherry is a very close friend of mine. We met 20 years ago. She's a wonderful person and a great director. She is internationally renowned for her film Desert Flower, Die Wüstenblume. She did the last film that Eichinger produced before he died. This was the story of Natascha Kampusch. And beside doing heavy drama, she did this wonderful comedy called Irren ist menschlich. And we did a 2-episode film about therapists, which was drama and comedy.
Because we think there is one thing, the best tool to survive is humor. And now we stand here and look to this mass, and it looks on the surface, it sounds great, right? 2 successful women, terrific. But what happens? You start again, over and over again. You cannot make a great box office, Desert Flower, which is about female genital mutilation, by the way, or the Kampusch movie, both very successful movies. You start the next project from the scratch, because you always have to convince again and again. Same with Gabriela. If you do political topics or human-based, movies that really are daring, you always have to fight against fear. And you have to fight against your own fear. And this is what we are talking about today, because we believe in facing your own fears. Hey, this is a huge crowd of gentlemen and most of all ladies, and you're all think tanks, and we talked about role models yesterday, you're all role models. We talked about the rainbow. It has infinitive colors. So there we go, we are infinited.
Well, we heard this morning that you have to move from box to box, and this is what we're going to talk about, and this is what is our real life, is our crises, is our fear, and is the chaos. And digitalization has changed also our business. Everything has changed, which helps us a lot. We don't have to send scripts through Germany. We can just send them via email. Everything is much faster. We watch rushes on emails, we stream them, and we edit at different parts in Germany. We don't have to actually sit in the editing room anymore. So things have accelerated, like we heard yesterday. At the same time, the companies, the stations that we work for, are also digitalizing all the processes within their houses, which means that there's very little room for creativity because everything becomes more and more controlled. You have controllers everywhere. You have people that say, no, this can't be done. When I was working for the Bayerische Rundfunk 5 years, I left after 5 years, and the main sentence I heard there when I got there was, oh, Frau Sperl, das können wir jetzt nicht machen, das hat's noch nie gegeben. So what you do, you sort of say, okay, let's try. Maybe we fail, maybe we succeed. And I think the driving force that Sherry has and that I have, that we learn to trust ourselves, which is a hard process, which is a process that involves sort of, yes, it involves going from box to box. And after every last success that you produce, people expect you to duplicate this, to triplicate this, to do the same thing again. They want to have it sort of lined out. They want rules for it. And then you sit there and you say, sorry, I can't do it. And now, so the main thing is what we have to do, we have to go beyond the structures. We have to rely on ourselves for the storytelling. And this is also what I try to teach the students at university, because they all want to know that in a market that it's getting more and more difficult, how do you become successful? So the only thing I tell them is rely on yourself, and what you should tell people is the stories about yourself and the stories that really matter to you. And now storytelling, Sherry, you will go on.
Well, you know, we work in the entertainment business, so our task is to make people laugh and cry. And so we have the story, but we start from, I mean, like within a few months you have to create sort of a company, right? All of a sudden you have to deal with 80 to 120 people who have to simultaneously work on a movie over 4 months, 2 months to 4 months, or even like in Desert Flower, where we travel to a country like Djibouti, where there's no infrastructure at all for filmmaking. So, and who's the head of it? It's the producer and the director. And so it is all about that you, like I myself, I can only talk about myself, is I wake up often in the morning and I feel like a walking question mark. And I think, oh boy, am I able to do it again? Well, the last one was successful, but what about the next? And it is a fact that it's not getting better because you learn your flaws, you learn your insecurity, and then you say, okay, flaw, okay, insecurity, do you want to be my friend? And you try to include all your ups and downs and all your crises. And I mean, we both know crisis. I can give you a whole evening about crisis. But then you start, and then when we went to Africa, for instance, we knew we go as white people to a country to talk about female genital mutilation, okay? So what happened? People threw stones at us because they said, hey, what are you doing? Who are you? I said, if you don't talk about it, we are going to talk about it. And I made myself a promise that the day the movie is done, we go back to Africa. And that's what we did. We set up a huge blow-up screen and invited the nomads. Maybe a few of you have seen the movie, I don't know. Some? Yes? Okay. So, and the nomads have never seen a camera before. As yesterday somebody mentioned, I think it was the good-looking gentleman from Google, everybody has a cell phone all over the world. They have cell phones and they have camels, but they would not appear in front of a camera. Okay, so you also deal with overcoming cultural issues. And so what we did, we set up the screen, and we had an Arabic translator with a mic next to the screen, and we were expecting like 200 people, 1,200 people showed up. And it was mute, it was silent, and they watched it, and it's not in the African culture to sit still. It's not racist what I'm saying, it's just a habit, they don't sit still. And so at the end of the movie screening, a father got up and he said, I did not know what is going on in our families. I was not aware of it. We don't talk. Thank you. I'm not having my girls mutilated. So this is where I want to pick up at the beginning of this day, because I think these wonderful women sitting here this morning, great, courageous women. And this is where I want to pick up the spirit today with our speech. Sorry, Gabriela, this was a bit long, but you continue.
No, this is very important. I think all of us here, and many of the wonderful women who talked yesterday, we have succeeded in making great careers. many of you have very powerful positions. And I think what we here can do, this is taking up what you just said, is that we look to those people who are not as lucky as we are. And I think in telling stories, in moving people, emotion is always commotion, and this is how you can reach out to people. This is what we try to do, sometimes successful, sometimes not as successful, and you can make a difference. I think we all, and I think you have to go back to yourself to the point where you can say, not what does my company want, what do other people want. You have to really go back to yourself and rely and trust yourself. And I think this is a very, very hard way, because we're brought up differently. We're brought up to be individualistic. We're brought up to be our own self. We're brought up to fight. And I think, in a way, the movie business, if it is successful, and if a production is successful, it's the energy of combining everyone in the process to be part of the process. It's never the star, and it's never the money, and it's never one person. It's always a shared experience. And we did the therapist movies, and it was very hard to finance, because everyone said, who wants to know about therapists? So it was a long way to get this done, and we had too little money, we had too little time, and so we said, okay, what are we going to do? We need to have a team of people that have set their minds on doing this with us and concentrating. And so we asked the drivers to read the scripts, and which they had never done before. They drive people, they drive stars, but they have never had anyone ask them to read a script. So, and they were so motivated, because they had to get up at 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning to bring the stars to the set, who, of course, when they get up very early, are not in a very good mood. And it helped the whole energy of the whole process.
Something else, we always talk about changes and digitalization and what we are facing in the year 2023 or whatever, but there's one thing I still think remains, whatever happens. It's the seduction of storytelling. It's when you return, like, just remember when you were a child, yeah? And your mom is cuddling in your bed, or you are a mother and you take your child, and it's like, erzähl mir eine Geschichte, tell me a story. Yeah? And this is where it all starts. We tell story. Later on, when we get older, we want to hear more about our family history or whatever, or about a cultural history. It's always about storytelling. And you can do that to yourself. And writing a diary, I'm going to film it. It's always about coming back to your passion, if you are totally digitalized or not. And I think this is why we decided no PowerPoint, mics like that, and just be.
Yes,
it's about, because what drives us, going back to Gandhi, what did he say? Treat others like you want to be treated. Yeah. So it's so simple. But I think what I do every morning, even though I could be cranky, oh, what was that Gandhi phrase? Okay, Sherry, repeat it. But I do it, and it helps me. It sounds maybe ridiculous to you, but I'm here to tell you it helps.
And I want to tell you about when my greatest wish came true. It was my biggest crisis. And I had this wish I worked for the Bayerische Rundfunk, I was employed, then I became freelance. I was freelance before, I worked for another company, and my greatest wish was to have my own company. And then there was this investor who came along and said, okay, I'll finance you. You do wonderful movies, I give you all the money you need, do whatever you want. And I didn't know that he was thinking, you will do what I want. I found that out a couple of years later, because when the films I do are sometimes very hard to finance. And then we had a crisis in our business. We had a great change of leadership in one of the biggest companies that hands out the Aufträge. What is an Auftrag? The whatever. So I didn't come up, and we weren't break even after 2 years, and we didn't make a profit after 3 years. So then he said, okay, you're a wonderful producer. I take over the company, and you become an employee. And then you can produce your own films here. And I thought, no, I can't do this. And it was terrible for me because it meant losing my security, it meant losing my regular income, it meant losing all the things I'd worked on for the last 3 years. And I decided, no, I can't stay, I have to walk out. And I was full of fear. I was really at the brink of a nervous breakdown, and I walked out and I said, okay, I can't do this. Whatever I do, maybe I start cooking. I'm a reasonable cook, so I'll open a bistro for all the people who work in the business. They'll probably come and eat at my little place. And what happened was that he had everything he wanted. He had taken over the creative work that I had been doing with other people for many years. And of course, the companies the networks say, well, where is she gone? We want her to do it. So my projects came after me. And I was able to find a young company, and I'm working for them freelance. I'm packaging my projects, I'm going there, I'm producing it under their roof, and they give me all the freedom and all the ways of doing it my own way. So I think what we can give you is that we can only say from our experience, from my experience, which is crises up and down, that you do what you really want to do what you love doing, what you love best, and trust yourself. And, well, I think time is up, so we could go on talking, but you...
Okay, so we want to end with 2 things. Just keep in mind, fear is a reaction and courage is a decision.